What's up, guys? This is Alex Christoforou with the Duran, and I have with me Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran.com. And today we're going to be talking about Brexit problems. All right, Alexander, real straight up. Is Tusk and the EU, are they playing hardball with Theresa May, or is Theresa May simply incompetent?
I think both is true. I think Theresa May is extremely incompetent and completely delusional. And we've discussed this before, of course, in our programs, and now we've seen it. I mean, she went off to the summit in Salzburg. She'd got herself worked up with this business with the Skripals, and I think she was expecting that with all the latest allegations she's been making against the Russians, this was going to make her friends there. She thought that she'd be able to play off the various European governments against the European Commission and against the European negotiators. She had this awful plan, Chequers, the Chequers plan for Brexit, which we've talked about on our programs, and which, as we've said, is an extremely unsatisfactory three-quarters of a way house. I say it's three-quarters of a way because he keeps Britain three-quarters within the European Union and only nominally takes it out. And she thought, against all logic, that the European leaders at Salzburg would accept it, and they didn't accept it. They said to her, all of them did, this simply isn't going to work. So she's now landed with a plan which people in Britain don't like, and which it turns out people in the European Union don't like either. So she is up the proverbial creek without a paddle, as we say in England.
All right, let's start from the EU side. Why is it not going to work? And then get into the English side, the UK side, why it's unworkable.
Well, I think from the EU side, what they see in this plan is that, as they see it, the British want to have their cake and eat it as well. They want to have all the benefits of being in the Union without actually being in the Union. Now, perhaps the British would see things differently. They'd say they're not actually getting many benefits from being in the Union, and a lot of people in Britain take the view that, in fact, this, as I said, unsatisfactory three-quarters house isn't what people who voted for Brexit in the referendum were looking for. But that is what the British business community has been lobbying for. It's what a lot of people in the British elite wanted. It's what the British civil service wants. It's what the British deep state, in other words, wants. So they don't want Brexit. If they've got to have Brexit, they want the least possible Brexit. The people in the EU don't like that at all. They say that you're wanting the benefits without taking on any of the burdens. But more importantly, from their point of view, it's quite clear that what Theresa May is not prepared to do is allow free movement of people from the European Union into Britain. And the people in the EU have told her that is indivisible. If you want all these arrangements to remain in place, you have to accept free movement. And given that free movement was the make or break issue for people who voted for Brexit in the referendum, that is a red line Theresa May simply cannot cross.
And how does Theresa May now move forward from this? What are the next steps? Is this negotiating tactics? Are they just playing the song and dance so they can get to some middle ground? Or is Theresa May really in a bind? I mean, is she really in deep trouble?
I think she's in extremely deep trouble, because I think up to this moment, until this summit in Salzburg, I think she really did think it was a negotiating ploy. I think she thought that she was having problems with Juncker, the Commission, and with Barnier, who is the chief negotiator. But she'd be able to cut a deal with Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron of France, and basically go over the heads of these people. And she's now discovered, to her shock, that she cannot do that, and that they're going to stand full square behind Barnier and Juncker and the Commission and the negotiating stand that the Commission is taking. And the reason they're doing that is because Merkel and Macron know perfectly well that if they start making concessions of the sort that May wants on free movement, other people in the union are going to start demanding restrictions on free movement as well. And with people like Orban in Hungary and Salvini in Italy breathing down Merkel's throats on this, back on this, and threatening the integrity of the union and on the Schengen zone, they cannot shift. So I think the European Union isn't going to shift. I think Theresa May cannot shift because, as I said, for many people in Britain, this is a red line. So I think we are now, as Theresa May herself said, in an impasse, and I cannot see that she has any way out of it.
Now, there's a time limit to this as well, isn't there? I mean, sooner or later, from what I understand, the break is going to happen, whether there's a deal or not a deal.
Yeah.
So first, correct me if I'm wrong there. If I'm correct, great.
You are absolutely right. The deadline is March. This cannot go on beyond March. Britain leaves the European Union in March. We'll come back to that in a moment.
All right, that's my next question. If no deal is reached, if nothing happens until March and Britain leaves, what does that mean? Well,
you put your finger on the fundamental delusion that the British are suffering from, because they think, or some people in Britain seem to think, that there is going to be a negotiation, and if they cannot agree, then this deadline in March can either be shifted back or it can be adjusted in some way, or, of course, there are some people in Britain who think that Brexit isn't going to happen at all. What none of these people seem to understand is that it is not their decision. Britain has now invoked Article 50 of the Treaty of the European Union. The only way Brexit can be stopped and prevented from happening in March of 2019 is if the European Council, that is all 27 European member states, and the European Parliament both agree that in the absence of an agreement, Brexit won't happen. If there is no agreement and the European Union says Brexit goes ahead, Brexit goes ahead, and the British leave the European Union without any agreement, and they find themselves essentially in the position that so many people have been talked about, where they are outside the Union with no special arrangements with the Union and are reduced to trading with the Union after a transition period of 2 years on World Trade Organization terms. It'll be the hardest of Brexits, the cleanest of Brexits, but paradoxically, I think that is the solution that most people who voted in the referendum for Brexit actually voted for.
That's what I was just about to say. Is that not what the people voted for, was to have a clean break from the EU, and then the UK, from what I understand, they can act, accordingly with each member state as they wish. In other words,
Exactly.
They can do trade deals with Italy and Greece and Portugal as however they want. Is that true?
Well, they can't do trade deals with Italy and Greece and Portugal because, of course, those remain members of the EU. And, of course, any trade deal is negotiated with the EU. But they are in the same position as the United States, China, Japan, Russia, India, all these other countries which trade with the EU on World Trade Organization terms. And you're absolutely right. I have no doubt at all that if you'd asked most people when they went into the polling booths, what do you expect Brexit is going to mean, they would have said something like this: we have wasted in Britain 2 years debating this issue under the delusion that many people seem to have had in the British political class, that they could somehow wish Brexit away, that they could somehow remain in the Union, but not in the Union in some form. And of course what they've discovered is that the European Union itself doesn't want that. So that is now the dilemma they are facing. They have a situation where they're now finally being confronted with the reality of the Brexit referendum vote. And that is the political crisis that we have in Britain now. And of course, it is also the political crisis of Theresa May herself.
Now, you mentioned earlier that the European Council, all the 27 member states, 26, 27 member states, can vote to not proceed with Brexit. How possible is that happening?
Right. Well, personally, I think it's extremely unlikely. I think let's say there was no agreement. Let's say even that the British had a second referendum, which some people are talking about, and that second referendum decided that the people don't want to leave the European Union after all. It doesn't alter the fact that my dog is just walking all over me, Alex. Just a second. Okay. Does it matter if people can see him? Okay. Shall I start again?
People want to see. No, it's okay. Keep on going.
Okay.
Keep on going.
Okay, so let us assume that there is this second referendum that some people are talking about, and let us assume that that second referendum resulted in a different outcome, which said that we don't want to leave the European Union after all. That doesn't change the fact that Article 50 has already been invoked. Given that Article 50 has been already invoked, the entire European Parliament and the European Council, that means all 27 of the member states, have to decide that a Brexit is called off. It only takes one to say no, one state to say no, and Brexit goes ahead regardless of what the British want. I think this is a reality that has never fully sunk through in Britain. And I'm going to say something here. Going back to your question, I think there are many people across the EU who say, let the British go. They've been a difficult partner for the EU from the moment they joined. There's going to be more trouble further down the line if they stay. And even if they come back and say, well, we've actually changed their minds, our minds, I am confident that there are going to be people in France especially, perhaps even in Germany, who will say, look, we just can't tolerate this situation anymore. The British are constantly dithering about this thing. We have to have finality. We have to have certainty. So even whatever the British say, they leave in March 2019.
All right, because I think your dog is giving us the signal that it's time to wrap this up. I'll one last question, Alexander, real quick. Come March, and there is a hard Brexit. Who loses and who wins, in your opinion?
Right, well, I think the people who, first of all, Theresa May loses. I mean, she loses very badly. I mean, when I say very badly, I'm not even sure she's going to survive till March. There is talk at the moment, as I'm talking, that she might be on the brink of resigning, and it's possible she might not survive the weekend. I mean, we're going to have Conservative MPs going to their constituencies, hearing what people are going to be saying. People are furious with her here. People within her own party and her cabinet are furious with her. So, she will go. I think the entire Conservative government, which has got itself into this extraordinary situation of negotiating something that was never possible, is also going to find itself in great difficulties. There will be some hardliners within the Conservative Party, possibly Boris Johnson, more likely Jacob Rees-Mogg, who will feel vindicated, and they may find that their position gets stronger. But I think the person who will come out best from all of this is the one politician in Britain who has been absolutely consistent in saying that Brexit really does mean Brexit, this slogan that Theresa May was using at one time, that the only Brexit that makes sense is the clean break, and that politician is Nigel Farage. Now, how that will work out, I don't know. But if Britain crashes out of the European Union in March without an agreement, it's difficult to see how people can argue that he has not been made stronger and that he has not been proved right.
Excellent. We wait until March then, but we'll be covering this story as it goes along because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more twists and turns. That's
Absolutely,
for sure.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you liked the video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. And visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. And in the description box down below, you'll find links to our PayPal page and our Patreon page. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you once again. Until next time, take care.